Dear Diary, in our last two league games, we picked up back-to-back 2-0 wins over Leeds United and Everton, which has kept us in touching distance of league leaders Liverpool. In saying that, we weren't overly convincing in either of those wins, and even used the tiki-taka late to get the job done in the latter of those games. But today, we have a tough test ahead of us as we take on Manchester City away from home. We've managed to avoid defeat against them so far this season, and we'll be looking to continue that trend and potentially even pick up 3 points to narrow the gap on Liverpool. Then after the City game, we have a huge FA Cup semi-final against Brentford. We know they're a decent team, but we're confident in our ability to get the job done and book our place in the final against either City or Spurs. Until next time. Hello everyone and welcome to episode 93 of FMOE here on Shaun Does FM with Arsenal. I hope you are doing well, and coming up today we take on Man City in one of our toughest games left of the Premier League season away from home. Hopefully you can close the gap on Liverpool, these days only 3 points behind, and off the back of that we will try and make our second domestic cup final of the season as we take on Brentford in the FA Cup semi. So if you are looking forward to those two games in today's episode, then do remember to go down below, leave a thumbs up on the video, and if you haven't done so already and are enjoying this series here on the channel, also consider hitting that subscribe button and turning that notification bell on as well. It is greatly appreciated, but as you would have seen through the intro, we have played two games in the Premier League off the back of where we did leave things at the end of the last episode. If you missed that one, I'll leave a link to it over in the top right corner. Not super convincing wins. We did show you guys the stats from those games during that intro. Fair to say not quite at our best, especially away at Everton, but thankfully changed to a tiki-taka with a few little changes late in that game and did grab two late goals. A lucky one through Sambi Lokonga, then one in deep injury time through Vieira, and it did mean that in both of those games we did pick up a 2-0 win as expected. So still in second on the Premier League table, but these days only 3 points behind Liverpool. But there are some interesting matches coming in and around these ones that we are playing in today's episode, including the first one that we're going to show you guys in today with us, as we do take on Manchester City. Of course, they are managed by the former Arsenal manager in Sergio Conceição, but so far yet to taste defeat against these guys since we have taken over at Arsenal. We beat them in the EFL Cup semis over 2 legs, and of course also at the Emirates earlier this season at the Etihad. This might be a little bit tougher also, and quite a good run of form as well, but hopefully we can somehow find a way to pick up something out of this game and hopefully keep a bit of pressure on Liverpool. Of course, the board, we did tell them back at the start of January to get our transfer budget adjusted so that we could afford Mbappe, that we would challenge for the Premier League title. That is why I want to keep the pressure on Liverpool as much as possible. To pass that objective, a few other things we need to catch you guys up on going into today's episode. First off, the injury situation. Not as bad as it was in the last episode. Bukayo Saka very close to coming back, should be available for that FA Cup semi-final, even though it might only be from the bench. He is 1 day away from being able to sit on the bench, but Yannick Grass and Charlie Patino still out for a little while, but starting to get more of our regular players back who have been missing for the last few episodes or over the course of parts of those, the likes of Coop Miners and Martin Odegaard. They are back and available, so that is important as we are going to take on Manchester City, and also off the back of what have been a little bit of a tough run of form away from home with the Gegenpress, and also having tried something late in the Everton game and it seemed to work. We are going to go back to a tiki-taka away from home for this game. I've just made a few very slight changes in terms of passing directness and the tempo, instead of both of those being right down this end where it's very short as well as very low. Instead of that, we are going to just go to a usual short passing directness and also play with a higher tempo. Hopefully away from home it does mean we can do a bit better than we did do at the start of the season when trying to use the tiki-taka both at home and away from home. We did against Everton. It did seem to work, so hopefully it does the job here against Manchester City, albeit this is a much tougher test, and we'll come back shortly with the team sheets and hopefully keep some pressure on Liverpool at the top of the Premier League as we try and take down Manchester City at the Etihad. And here are the team sheets for this first game of today's episode. Here are Manchester City in a really good patch of form, and as you can see, it is a really strong lineup as well, so we do have our work cut out for us in terms of us. A few changes up front compared to usual. Barea starts over Jesus, in better form at the moment. Also Carvalho still out right in place of Saka, and Trincao over Martinelli, still quite injury prone. Apart from that though, we are at full strength and hopefully can get something out of this difficult trip away from home. And just shy of the 10-minute mark, the first highlight here is in our favourites, a corner which Tomiyasu does get on the end of. Unfortunately, that one though goes over the bar. It's been a decent start for us, but still 0-0. And at the 25-minute mark, we get our next highlight in this game. It is a throw in our favour, and Tomiyasu gets that one straight back from Ødegaard. So far, it's been an even game. Both teams with 4 shots. We've had one more on target, and it looks like both highlights so far, hopefully, are going to be in our favour. So it does bode well for a higher tempo tiki-taka, seeing as it did get us a result late in that trip to take on Everton last time out. Now Trincao plays that one back to Bamba, over there to Kieran Tierney, back to Bamba. We take our time here to try and launch an attack. There is some space though down this right-hand side. Carvalho back to Saliba, now all the way back to Bamba. And yet again, we just take our time here. Eventually try and find Carvalho. Do miss out, but thankfully Coop Miners wins that before Haaland can get on the ball. And now Tomiyasu eventually starts to make some headway down that right-hand side. Carvalho back for Coop Miners. Barea. Lovely shift on there for Carvalho, who gets in behind. It is a patient and very well created goal. We are going to have to wait though for a VAR check. Hopefully it doesn't get ruled out, because that was a very pretty goal and could give us a big lead. But unfortunately it has been disallowed. Carvalho was offside, so unfortunately that was some really good play. It won't count, just one step offside, went a slight fraction too soon. So it is still 0-0 coming up to the half-hour mark. And with only a few minutes left in this first half, it is a throw in here to City inside of the final third. It looks like we deal with that somewhat there with a few headers away. Ødegaard will get another one, but unfortunately that one goes into the path of Kimmich. And now they get a chance here, City, to build from the back. Kimmich plays that out to Ake, and Mudryk does get in behind our defence, but thankfully tries to chip that one somewhat over Ramsdale. Fairly easy save for him, and it looks like it is going to be 0-0 here as we do head into half-time. Stats-wise, that half did favour Manchester City, but based on the highlights that we did see, I'm fairly encouraged by how we are playing here against a good team like these guys, so not too disappointed with how that first half went. However, Fabio Carvalho is on a 6.3, so with that in mind, I think we're going to do here at halftime is take him off for Vieira, but apart from that, fairly happy with how this one is going, and we'll get things back underway, still locked up at 0-0. And 10 minutes into the second half, we are going to make some more substitutions here because we do have Barea on our 6.4 and also Tomiyasu down to a red heart. So we'll bring on Yakubu for Tomiyasu, switch him with Kieran Tierney, who can cover right back. Also, Jesus off the bench for Barea. Still 0-0 with 35 minutes left, and also might just try something which I have seen work with some away tactics. Instead of doing a counter press, we'll see if a regroup does help, as we are still locked up at 0-0. And up to the 70-minute mark, still no highlights in the second half. We are going to make our last 2 substitutions here. A few players out there are down to red hearts. First off, we'll take off Trincao on a 6.7 for Gabriel Martinelli. And also, probably the safe option here is to take off Kieran Tierney on a red heart in defence. Vaskovic will come on for him, still 0-0. And 5 minutes off the back of those last few substitutions, you might have just seen it before, but Man City have certainly got on the front foot of late in this game, so I think we're going to go back to using a counter press with 15 minutes left. And with 10 minutes left, we finally get a highlight in the second half. It is a throw in here for Man City in a dangerous area. They float that one into the mix of Saliba, heads that one away, but now Nathan Ake with a shot, it gets blocked, but then a City player tries to curve that one top right corner, thankfully just over the bar, and still 0-0, but now we go down the other end, and Edison does claim the ball, so maybe something's going to happen from this highlight. They pump it deep. Saliba wins it, but gives it straight to Raspadori, and City again are on the attack, but thankfully he takes a shot on the air from well outside the box. Never really friends the goal. Still 0-0 with 5 minutes left. And off the back of that most recent highlight, we're just going to go a little bit wider in terms of our attacking width, and hopefully that might give us something to work with in these last few minutes. To be fair, a point from the Etihad, not a bad result, but 3 points would be great. But it does look like it's going to be a 0-0 draw, albeit just as we should be wrapping up this game. There is a free kick in our favour. Lots of space there down the right-hand side, but unfortunately we give the ball away, albeit Saliba eventually wins it back. Thankfully that ball does fall to Coop Miners, and Jesus will find Martinelli. And behind goes Fabio Vieira. He will square that for Jesus. Buries it bottom right corner. Finally back on the score sheet, and that will surely secure us all 3 points. That could be a massive win here in the title race this season. Lovely work eventually, because that ball did get turned over a few times on the counter-attack. Jesus is unmarked inside of the Man City box, tucks away bottom right corner, and despite the fact stats-wise that we've been well and truly on the back foot, we do pick up a 1-0 win. To be fair, even though they had lots of shots, we had the same amount on target, and overall highlights in that game were quite even, so I do feel like it's not quite as much of an FMing as it may appear, albeit if I was the City manager, I might be arguing something slightly different. But Gabriel Jesus finally ends a little bit of a goal drought, and we pick up 3 massive points against Manchester City. Sergio still can't beat his successor at the Emirates, and that will mean that for now, we do join Liverpool joint on points on top of the table, albeit they do have a game in hand. And there is the confirmation. The other thing that is in our favour in this run home potentially as well is the fact that if we are joint on points, our goal differential at the moment is quite superior to Liverpool. So that is something that hopefully might work in our favour. But as I said, that is a big win. Back joint on points with Liverpool off the back of a 1-0 win at the Etihad. And before we do go forward and look at that Brentford game in the FA Cup semis, just a quick news item here about Sergio, who's just getting a little bit frustrated now about the fact that he can't beat me. To be fair, kind of get where he's coming from, because stats-wise, they probably should have got something from that game. But poor old Sergio's having a bit of a cry about it in the media. What a poor fella. Can't beat Arsenal. Wait till we have Kylian Mbappe next season, who will actually put the ball in the back of the net a little bit more than our current strikers will. But that was a very good win. As I said, we'll come back shortly and look forward to the FA Cup semis where we take on Brentford. And we've gone forward a few days off the back of that big win in the Premier League, as we are about to take on Brentford in the FA Cup semi-finals. Before we do preview that, just a quick look at what is going on in the Premier League on the same match day, because there is the chance here that Liverpool might slip up on this match day, because if we go and have a look at the fixtures on this Saturday, the 20th of April. And in fact, I tell a lie, it is the day after our FA Cup semi-final, but still in this match week where we are focusing on the FA Cup. Liverpool have to travel to Old Trafford to take on Manchester United. That could be a bit of an opening for us if they don't pick up 4 points from that game. As I said, they do still have that game in hand, so might still go above us. But still, if we have a look at both teams' run home for the Premier League, including this game against Manchester United, Liverpool do have a couple of tough games still in their run home, including this one on this match day. Also, they take on Newcastle at home. They've still got the Champions League to contend with Manchester City, and also their last 2 games a lot tougher than ours, as they take on City yet again, as well as West Ham. Compare that to what we have at Arsenal, only having to deal with the FA Cup as the other distraction, but we take on Chelsea in our next Premier League game off the back of this one. And that's probably our toughest one left this season, because in our last month we take on some teams who, to be fair, struggling quite a bit. Wolves are inside the top 10, also a North London derby, but that's at home, and Tottenham are just outside of the relegation zone. I think our run home a little bit kinder, so hopefully Man United do take some points off of Liverpool on the day after this FA Cup semi-final, and that could give us a big helping hand, as well, of course, as that goal differential in the race for the Premier League title. But it is time for the FA Cup semis. We are taking on Brentford. This is definitely the draw I did want for this round. We avoided derby against Tottenham, and also another game against Manchester City, and Brentford are doing decently in the Premier League. They are in 10th, but this should be a game that we do win, even though we are going to rotate a few players. But thankfully, Bukayo Saka can make his way onto the bench for this one. We can bring him on for 45 minutes at some stage, maybe during the second half, and that could be a big boost going in to that run home, but hopefully we can make our way through to our second domestic final of this season. We'll come back shortly and hopefully see that be the case as we take on Brentford in the FA Cup semi. And here are the team sheets for the semi-final of the FA Cup. There are Brentford. As you can see, quite a few draws in their last few games, only one win from their last 5, also playing quite a narrow system. We actually come into this one now in a good patch of form. We have gone back to our slower tiki-taka style. We'll see if we change it throughout the course of this game. You can also see a fair few changes from that previous one against City, but hopefully we can still get the job done and make our way through to another domestic cup final. And we're just about into the last 10 minutes here of this first half. As you can tell by the stats so far, this has been a very quiet half. About 10 minutes ago, we did go to a slightly lower passing tempo instead of a really low one. Now we'll also go to short instead of very short for passing and see if that might kick this game into life. It's been very quiet so far, 0-0 with 5 minutes left in the first half, and eventually we do get something to happen. Somehow Brentford there do get that ball. It's a bit poor there from our left back today, Yakubu, to let them in behind, and Aaron Ramsdale for some reason jumps for that ball, doesn't win it, and Kedia maybe proving to be a bit of a nuisance in front of him, and Damsgaard, the Zealand twin, puts that one away, and we go 1-0 down in an FA Cup semi-final, and this is not going to plan. Good ball in from home, and Ketia, somehow that ball gets through him, and Kamara as well as Ramsdale. Damsgaard pokes that home, 1-0 down just shy of half-time in the FA Cup semis. And in fact, right off the back of that opening goal, now it's a corner here to Brentford, but thankfully Ramsdale will come out and actually claim that one a bit better than what he did before with the goal that we did concede, albeit we had our chances there to deal with that ball before it went into the path of him, but we eventually make our way out from the back. Yakubu here in some space down this left-hand side, albeit that ball won't find Martinelli. Ampadu plays that over for Sorensen. Now Greaves does pass that forward, but good work there from Coop Miners to win that back for us. Now Yakubu yet again is on the ball. Nice one over the top there for Martinelli, and Ampadu brings him down inside the box. That is a stone-cold penalty. We are going to have to wait, though, for a VAR check. This might be one of the chances for Coop Miners to get his first goal. I believe it will be. Since coming back from injury, indeed, that was a penalty. Wasn't much doubt about that one. Hopefully puts this away. He does tend to miss sometimes in these games where we are in trouble. The goalkeeper went the right way, but thankfully this time Coop Miners does find that bottom right corner. And despite the fact we have been pretty awful in this first half, we are going into the sheds locked up at 1-1. Just puts that one beyond the outstretched keeper, and that will make sure it is locked up at 1-1 at half-time in this FA Cup semi-final. As I said, we've been pretty rubbish in that first half, but thankfully that penalty does mean we aren't behind at the break. To be fair, most of our players here are on a decent rating, so we'll tell them not too happy with what we've seen so far, and hopefully things go a bit better in the second half. We'll get it back underway, locked up at 1-1. And only a few minutes into the second half, we have an early free kick here. We try and pick out Saliba there at the far post, but this does get headed out to Coop Miners. He takes on a shot at his block, but it goes out and does fall to Yakubu. Nice ball over there, looking for Vieira, who, to be fair, might have been offside, but Brentford deal with it now. Singo puts this into the mixer. It goes back out to Yakubu, right on the edge of the box. What can he do here? Takes his time, plays that back to Pere. Vieira shot. Jesus shot. Two of those are blocked, but the third one will find the bottom left corner. We're still looking really average in this game, but somehow are up by 2-1 early in this second half, and maybe the luck is falling our way today after we had some bad luck during those episodes last week against Real Madrid. That one, very harsh on Brentford. They stopped those shots a few times, but couldn't the third, and that makes it 2-1 Arsenal early in the second half. And off the back of that, a free kick here to Coop Miners. Tries to pick out that top left corner, just goes wide. Still 2-1 Arsenal. And very short off the back of that Coop Miners free kick, another highlight here. Somehow Jesus keeps that ball despite a strong challenge from a Brentford defender. Now Carvalho tries to look there for Martinelli, but Holm will deal with that. But then Kamara plays that forward to Pere, albeit Gallagher wins that one back for Brentford, and they might get a chance here on the attack. And Kedia is in behind. Good save from Ramsdale, but thankfully was offside. So still 2-1 Arsenal coming up to the hour mark. And on the hour mark, it's a free kick here to Brentford. They pump this one deep, but thankfully no one gets on the end of it. And Ramsdale can come out and claim it, but so far been an action-packed second half, even though there has only been the one goal. A bit of an iffy option there from Ramsdale, throwing that sideways to a centre-back under a little bit of pressure here to try and get this out from our centre-backs, and indeed a poor pass there does mean Luis takes that off of Vieira, but good work in return from Pere, good slide tackle, gets us back on the ball. Martinelli forward to Jesus, pings that out to Yakubu, making his way forward down that left-hand side. Martinelli over the top, picks out Jesus, tight angle, but he will beat the Brentford goalkeeper. That is the best goal that we've scored so far in this game, because the previous two have been a bit fortunate, including one from the penalty spot, and we eventually get a cushion goal in this game. As you can see, we've been working our way into this one, especially off the back of half-time. That penalty that Brentford gave away before the break could be a big moment in this one. It does feel like in the second half we've certainly got on the front foot, now up by 3-1 early in the second half. And while we are here off the back of Saliba picking up a yellow card, I think we might just make a few changes to try and get some players fresh for the upcoming games in the Premier League. So Saka can come on at right wing. We'll bring on Bamba for Saliba and move Kamara to that ball-playing defender role. With a half hour left and off the back of going 3-1 up. And up to the 69-minute mark, it's a nice time for a highlight as a throw-in here for Brentford. Greaves, who in the past did look like a very good centre-back option when we were at Cardiff. Not too sure if that is still the case now that we're at a team like Arsenal, who are a lot stronger, but they're Vieira with a good slide tackle. We've made a few of those in the second half. Now Martinelli makes his way to the edge of the box and just inside the byline. Back there for Yakubu. Coop Miners from a long way out. Picks out Singo here inside the box and straight off the bench back from injury. Bukayo Saka stabs that one home. Bottom left corner, and that should make sure we are going to reach our second cup final of the season domestically. 4-1 against Brentford with 20 minutes left, and off the back of that, it might actually be a good time for us to make the remainder of our substitutions, but that's some good build-up play there yet again, and straight back in the team, Bukayo Saka will pick up a goal. So we'll just see here who we should be taking off with around about 15 minutes left. There's a few players on red hearts. We'll take off Martinelli for Trincao, Pere for Sambi Lakonga. Those are the two players on red hearts, but of the rest, Coop Miners, probably the one who's been injured most recently, so I think he will be the other one that we do take off for Ugarte off the back of us going 4-1 up. And only a few minutes off the back of those last few substitutions and that fourth goal, we do have a throw in here nearly inside of the final third. Saka plays that one back to Ugarte. Now Singo having a good game at right back, makes his way inside the box, takes on a shot there. Castillo tries to hit it away. It falls to Trincao. First time finish, and Brentford are getting a little bit hammered here, even though we haven't really been that good. 5-1 with 10 minutes left in this FA Cup semi-final. We are home and hosed now in that final. It just depends who we play out of City or Tottenham. You'd expect City, of course, with Tottenham being just outside of the relegation zone, but Trincao comes off the bench to make it 5-1. And we are inside injury time in this game. As I said, it hasn't been the greatest performance in terms of stats. We've only just had the edge in this game, and that first half in particular was very poor, but thankfully really clicked into gear in that second half off the back of that late penalty in the first half, and we pick up in the end a very comfortable 5-1 win, keep up a good winning run of form here at Arsenal. And it does mean, even though I still believe we weren't actually that good in that game, we have made yet another domestic final, and we'll take on one of Spurs or Manchester City in the FA Cup final later on in the season. So we've still got two more trophies that we are competing for here at Arsenal. We'll come back shortly, checking on what did happen in that big Premier League game between Manchester United and Liverpool from Old Trafford, and also see who we are playing in the FA Cup final. And we've gone for today off the back of that somewhat scratchy 5-1 win over Brentford there in the FA Cup semi. I know it sounds a little bit weird, but I don't think we played that well, but did pick up a comfortable victory. And as you can see over there in the middle of the screen, that does mean yet another matchup with Arsenal's former manager in Sergio Conceição, as we are taking on Manchester City in the final of the FA Cup. They did defeat Tottenham, as you probably would expect, by a scoreline of 1-0. So it does mean the FA Cup final for this season, Arsenal versus Manchester City. Hopefully, off the back of not losing to those guys in 3 previous games this season, we can make sure that that's the case again and can pick up our second trophy of the season. Hopefully maybe even have a sneaky chance of picking up a domestic treble with the Premier League as well, because thankfully, if we go back over and have a look at that competition, and if we go over to the profile and check out the results from this match day that has just gone, Liverpool could only manage a goalless draw there at Old Trafford, so the gap on top of the table is only 1 point, and as we pointed out earlier, their run home does look a bit trickier than ours, especially once we get past our next match, which is against Chelsea from Stamford Bridge. If we can pick up points from that game and maybe even keep that gap to just 1 point, I do feel like there is a chance for us to at least join Liverpool on points, and our goal differential is still significantly superior, so still in with a right rule show of potentially picking up the Premier League as well as the FA Cup and of course already the EFL Cup for this season. But I think that will do it for today's episode. 2 good wins there, a little bit scratchy both of them, but big results: 1-0 over City in the Premier League and 5-1 over Brentford in an FA Cup semi. If you did enjoy those games and today's episode, then do remember to go down below, leave a thumbs up on the video, and if you haven't done so already and are enjoying the series here on the channel, also consider hitting that subscribe button and turning that notification bell on as well. We'll come back tomorrow. As I mentioned earlier, the run home for us, I think some of our tougher games are coming up in our next 2 in the Premier League, so I think that's what we're going to come back for. Both away from home, we take on Chelsea in a London derby from Stamford Bridge. That is definitely our toughest one left off the back of that City one, so we'll come back and show you guys that game, and also the one at the start of May as we do take on Wolves, currently in 9th. Those are our last 2 games against teams currently inside of the top 10. If we can get through those with a decent amount of points and still within touching distance of Liverpool, I think we have a decent chance potentially of overtaking those guys with their last couple of games looking a lot trickier than ours do. So we'll come back tomorrow and play those 2 games in the Premier League and hopefully still be not too far behind Liverpool in the title race. So until then, thank you very much for watching, keep on keeping on, and I'll see you then. Cheers.